in India, which is completely mixed economic system. So nowadays, which is nothing but the LPG policy, which is more benefit to the businessman. Factory Act 1948, because you start producing with the help of factory, there are too many workers are working. The complete act which is related to the factory. The majority of revenue generated by the government is from the tax collection. Okay, so the tax and financial law which is followed by the businessman. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to one and all. I am Natesh, lecturer in commerce, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, MYSURU, the Temple of Excellence. We are in the Uni 2 Session 1 second semester Business Environmental B.B.A. So the second unit name Government and Legal Environmental. So in the external macro factors, we going to study completely. You're going to study for the concept like government and legal environmental. So moving forward, my today agenda. So government functions, what exactly, whenever the business started, if you want to start, so some compulsory the government function of the state, because we are operating within the state, we must to get more clarity. So the economic role of the government, which is completely the chapter is the government as well as legal environmental, which is coming under the macro environmental factor. So as a businessman, they want to study. So the legal environmental, importance of legal environment moving forward. So the government function of the state, because whenever you going to start respected state, you have to study, you must clear the concept which is related to government function under the state. So the design of regulation need, because you are operating a business, what and all the regulation passed by the government as a businessman, they want to adopt. So the design of regulations need to fit the capability of state regulatory agency, because in the government whenever they are trying to pass any rules and regulation or setting some policy or giving guidelines for the businessman, complete the state will be taking, so which is a regulatory agency. And the sophistication of market, because we are operating a business in the market. As a businessman, you need to follow the guidelines pass or amendment pass which is related to business. Okay, and give greater emphasis to the personal responsibility. Everyone is equally important. The businessman, they are taking a responsibility. So in most modern economic, the state regulatory role is now broader and more complex ever before, because we are standing in the modern competitive world. So of course related to economical role which is passed by the government, if any economic if they want to develop, of course the economical factors we going to study, the regulatory body, the agency, the government are taking a lot of effort. The more complex before covering a such area as the environmental, because as a businessman, when we are standing in the environmental, we need to study the surrounding, the government, how they are taking a responsibility, how they made compulsory rules and regulation, legal guidelines. Okay, and the financial sector as well as more traditional areas is a monopoly. So here the financial sector which is a more contribution for the GDP or economical background. Okay, if you try to study, so very fastly the economic role is taking a very important role moving forward. So next the promotional role, under the economical role, very promotional role. This is also more important in the developing country, because unless you're not promoting, the government is not promoting. Okay, so the economical role which is related to the business. Okay, so then the developed, because the speedy development of the industry and commerce, whenever any number of industry are increasing or business commerce activities increasing, the promotional responsibility the government is taking, okay, to promote the industry, either small scale or medium scale or large scale. Okay, so we can say which is a neglected section, the government they want to promote. Okay, commerce. and the economic required to development of the infrastructure. So any industry if they are starting any business, so that's what the government or industry development area or they are sanctioning those who are keen interested to take the responsibility to start business or manufacturing unit. So the infrastructure the government want to provide for them, and including facilitating organization. So there are even the financial assistance, the support, what and all which is related to start an industry, the government they want to promoting. So entrepreneur role, and under entrepreneur role, because there is a lot of startup we are identifying many nowadays, we are identifying a lot of entrepreneurs are coming, okay, new startup are coming, so which is nothing but entrepreneur role. Okay, so direct participation of the government in the business was very common, particularly in the socialist and developed country. So we are India is a mixed economic system. We are adapted. When you are trying to promote or you are planning to increase more business and industry, whatever which is located in the India, so definitely they want to go for entrepreneur role. Reason including the ideological and dearth of private entrepreneur, because the government majority, when you try to compare with the government, the private size number is more. So that's what the government is giving free license. Okay, a few business they want to encourage. That's what there are too many plan which is related to entrepreneur to increase the entrepreneurs. Okay. So, and capital, even the government also providing a financial support for the businessman, okay, those who are interested to start the business. And the privatization, however, has become a widespread since the mid 1980, because the privatization, slowly the government is giving a responsibility or just going for completely privatization, then only the industry size will be increasing. So we are giving an opportunity for the private people, because in India, which is completely mixed economic system, so nowadays which is nothing but the LPG policy, which is more benefit to the businessman. Okay, so those who want to start the business, okay, so there are too many policy which is role will be taken care by the government. And regulatory role, because the government main functions which is a regulate, because they want to monitor, control. Otherwise, if they are not fixing some standard for business operation, so of course which is the society, the consumers are finding a very difficult. That's what some guidelines are fixing government. So regulations may cover a wide spectrum, extending from the entry into the business through the conduct of business to final result of the business. Because whenever any businessman, whenever they're planning to start any business as a businessman or entrepreneur, or they want to follow the legal guidelines, what and all which is related to the business, so the government is regulating. So that's what the businessman they are trying to following. And also exit at the time of starting a business, following the few guidelines which is related to business. And at the time of shut down your business operation, again you have to fulfill the legal guidelines. So the regulation is very important for the proper functioning of market economy. So unless government is not regulating, so of course which is very difficult, which is a negative impact on the market economy. So next, planning role. The government, individual state, they try to go for planning which is related to what kind of industry, where exactly they can identify the neglected section which is not at all promoting. So the planning role also the government functions. The nation necessity for the proper utilization of scarce resource and prioritization of the development objective. That means it's very simple. The scarce resource, if you take in an example like India, we are facing a problem, electronic goods. So that's what we are importing goods, electronic goods from the Japan or China. So that's whatever the day-to-day life, the human beings, what and all they are depending on for day-to-day to day, the food related or necessity item. If in India only which is available, so that's what the government are trying to promoting the or increasing the industry. The scarce resource what we are facing, if you start producing, so of course the major problem you are trying to avoid. So that's what the government also encouraging for the agriculture product. Okay, so necessity for our product, what and all which is required for day-to-day meet human beings day-to-day life, what and all they want. And ideological reason have made this important role for government in the developing and socialist country. So there are too many idea which is completely developing infrastructure, developing a market or fulfilling the consumers requirement. Okay, so the overall development, what and all necessity, so of course they try to provide. So just for that reason only the government want to go for planning. Moving forward, next legal environmental, what and all the previous slide which is related to the government functions. Okay, so now moving to the legal environmental. Now why they are setting a legal, why the businessman want to study the complete legal procedures which is related to business, starting a business or exit from the business. So the law which is made, law and act, too many act which is related to business. Okay, so the law which has passed by the government for business operation in cause legal environmental, such as the Sale of Goods Act 1930. So because you are starting a business, there is something, a few law or act or amendment which is related to the business. As a businessman, they want to get more clarity. Okay, so that's what there is one act which is related to Sale of Goods Act 1930, and one more Indian Company Act 1956, 2013, Income Tax Act 1961. So as a businessman, they want to follow what and all which is covered in this act. So as a Consumer Protection Act 1986, okay, so businessman, they want to get more. So because you are start producing the product and finally you're going to sell, so you need to protect the consumers. And the Weight and Measurement Act 1958, even the businessman, they want to follow this act. Environmental Protection Act 1986. So of course they want to protect the environmental. That's why the government is made compulsory act which is related to protection of environmental. Then agriculture policy, because not only for law, not only for act, there are too many policy which is related to business which is made by the government. Industrial policy and foreign investment policy and monetary policy. Factory Act 1948, because you start producing with the help of factory, there are too many workers are working, the complete act which is related to the factory. The Minimum Wages Act 1948. So this act also, as a businessman, they want to follow. Next, the legal environmental is a principle of law provider uniformity. To maintain uniformity, guidelines what and all set by the government, so which is nothing but maintaining a uniformity in the business. And certainty to the administration of justice. Because every businessman are equally taking a responsibility for just giving a justice for, and legal system of the country or legal system of the state. So what and all the system is adapted, implemented for the business say, even the businessman want to follow the system, and is formed by the government. Moving forward, the importance of the legal environmental, because the government, whenever they are setting a legal guideline for business operation to maintain a uniformity or standard, so the first one, tax and financial law, because the tax, the majority of revenue generated by the government is from the tax collection. Okay, so the tax and financial law which is followed by the businessman. So this law vary between country to country. Their tax will be different. Now we know our one nation, one tax, which is GST. There are different types of industry we can identify, but using a GST, subclassified central GST, state GST and IGST at the time of selling goods to any other state. But generally regulate accountancy practice, because that's what there is a something account which is compulsory. The businessman, there is sole trading, partnership, joint stock company, cooperative society. There are too many business, they want to maintain the standard of accounting system. The interest rate of loan, whenever the businessman, they try to borrow loan for the business purpose, of course the rate of interest also they want to get more clarity. And the tax collection, business are expected to provide sufficient document of income and expenditure. For instance, whatever the income generation made by individual businessman, each and every transaction they want to maintain the documentation, because the government, which is they want to know the more income and expenditure, what and all they is committed, the businessman. So that's what the creating a document is very important. So what kind of document, what is the standard of document, so everything the businessman want to get. So the law production or sale, law production, because any business which is starting for the production, ending with the sale. So this is a law production and sales related law businessman they want to follow. So the production of sales are certain goods in the prohibited, at least severity restriction in the many country. So there are too many product which is completely, you take example, weapons, okay, as an individual private people, they cannot take any steps to go for producing, which is completely prohibited. That kind of information also as a businessman they want to update. So this include among the other sale of them dangerous drugs and gun and explosive, for instance, because which is related to complete protections for the society. So that's what the government is not privatized for respected few things. So next important, the consumer protection. As a businessman, they want to adapt the law which is related to Consumer Protection Act. Okay, so as a businessman, they want to follow. So which is a major responsibility the government having to protect the society or consumer. So that's what there is one concept which is related to consumer protection. So most countries have a law ensuring customers are being treated fairly by the businessman. Most of the country, what and all the service they are getting, or product what they are getting, which is produced by the businessman. So of course, as a businessman, they don't have any rights to provide for unsafe product or unsafe service, what and all they promise. So that's what there is something like guidance which is followed by the businessman, which is related to maintain the quality. And this include the act regulating weight and measurement. So if a businessman finally whenever they're going to sell the product, the proper measurement, the proper weight, so the standard they want to maintain. So that's what the government is introduced the one act which is related to weight and measurement. So ensuring that the goods are sold actually to the weight of the size they are sold at. So the common weight, for example, 100 grams, 50 grams, 1 kilo, what and all. So there are different product based on the different measurement unit. They want to maintain some standard. That's what they are following. The government is implemented this act. Trade Description Act 1968, making the misleading description of the product illegal, because whatever the businessman they are trying to convey message for the consumer, so they don't have any rights to mislead them or misrepresentation. So next to employee protection, any businessman they are starting business, if they are not at all alone, so they need to depend on the different types of employee, like technical employee, non-technical employee. So of course the businessman they want to protect the employee. That's why the government passed one law or act which is related to employee protection. So law to the protection of employee include law against unfair discriminations based on the race, color, religion, sex, and age. So which is completely employee safeguard. And law against the unfair dismissals and other harassment, health and safety law, law regulating minimum wages, because as a businessman they want to pay the wages, minimum wage is set by the government, even the businessman they want to follow the act. So many countries to make written contract between the employer and employee mandatory, because if any employee is working and suddenly if you remove that employee or you are terminating the employee, so again for that reason only the government is passed one specific act and law. Keep on watch for next section. Thank you.